while Turnus urges thus his enterprise. The Stygian fury to the Trojan flies. New frauds invents and takes a steepy stand, which overlooks the vale with wide command, where fair Ascanius and his youthful train, with horns and hounds, a hunting match ordain, and pitch their tours around the shady plain. The fury fires the pack, they snuff, they vent, and feed their hungry nostrils with the scent. 'Twas of a well-grown stag whose antlers rise high over his front, his beams invades the skies. From this light course the infernal mate prepares, the country churls to mischief, hate, and wars. The stately beast the two Tyridae bred, snatched from his dams and the tame youngling fed. Their father to Reus did his father bring, to Reus chief ranger to the Latian king. Their sister Silvia cherished with her care the little wanton and did wreaths prepare, to hang his budding horns with ribbons tied, his tender neck and combed his silken hide, and bathed his body. Patient of command, in time he grew, and growing used to hand. He waited at his master's board for food, then sought his savage kindred in the wood, where grazing all the day at night he came to his known lodgings and his country dame. This household beast that used the woodland grounds was viewed at first by the young hero's hounds, as down the streams he swam to seek retreat in the cool waters and to quench his heat. Ascanius, young and eager of his game, soon bent his bow, uncertain in his aim, but the dire fiend the fatal arrow guides, which pierced his bowels to his panting sides. The bleeding creature issued from the floods, possessed with fear, and seeks his known abodes, his old familiar horde and household gods. He falls, and he fills the house with heavy groans, implores their pity, and his pain bemoans. Young Silvia beats her breast and cries aloud for succor from the clownish neighborhood. The churls assemble for the fiend who lay in the close woody covert urged their way. One with a brand yet burning from the flame, armed with a knotty club, another came. Whatever they catch or find without their care, their fury makes an instrument of war. Tyreus, the foster father of the beast, then clenched a hatchet in his horny fist, but held his hand from the descending stroke, and left his wedge within the glowing oak, to whetch their courage and their rage provoke. And now the goddess exercised in ill, who watched an hour to work her empire's will, ascends the roof, and to a crooked horn, such as was then by Latian shepherds borne, adds all her breath. The rocks and woods around, and mountains tremble at the infernal sound. The sacred lake of Trivia from afar, the Veline fountains and sulphurous Nor, shake at the baleful blast, the signal of the war. Young mothers wildly stare, with fear possessed, and strain their helpless infants to their breast. The clowns, a boisterous, rude, ungoverned crew, with furious haste to the loud summons flew. The powers of Troy then issuing on the plain, with fresh recruits their youthful chiefs sustain. Not theirs a raw and unexperienced train, but a firm body of embattled men. At first, while fortune favored neither side, the fight with clubs and burning brands was tried. But now both bodies reinforced the fields, are bright with flaming swords and brazen shields. A shining harvest either host displays, and shoot against the sun with equal rays. Thus, when a black-browed gust begins to rise, white foam at first on the curled ocean fries, then roars the main, the billows mount the skies, till, by the fury of the storm full blown, the mighty bottom over the cloud is thrown. First almond falls, old Thereus' eldest care, pierced with an arrow from the distant war. Fixed in his throat the flying weapon stood, and stopped his breath and drank his vital blood. Huge heaps of slain around the body rise, among the rest the rich Gelasius lies. A good old man, while peace he preached in vain, amidst the madness of the unruly train. 5 herds, 5 bleeding flocks, his pastures filled, his lands 100 yoke of oxen tilled. Thus, while in equal scales their fortune stood, the fury baked them in each other's blood. Then, having fixed the fight, exulting flies, and bears fulfilled her promise to the skies. To Juno thus she speaks: Behold, it is done, the blood already drawn, the war begun. The discord is complete, nor can they cease the dire debate, nor you command the peace. Now, since the Latian and the Trojan brood have tasted vengeance and the sweets of blood, speak, and my power shall add this office more. The neighboring nations of the Ausonian shore shall hear the dreadful rumor from afar of armed invasion and embrace the war. Then Juno thus: The grateful work is done, the seeds of discord sowed, the war begun. Frauds, fears, and fury have possessed the state, and fixed the causes of a lasting hate. A bloody hymen shall the alliance join betwixt the Trojan and Ausonian line. But thou wouldst speak tonight and hell repair, for not the gods nor angry Jove will bear thy lawless wandering walks in harbor air. Leave what remains to me, Saturnia said. The sullen fiend her sounding wings displayed. Unwilling left the light and sought the nether shade. In midst of Italy, well known to fame, there lies a lake, Sanctus is the name. Below the lofty mountains on either side, thick forests the forbidden entrance hide. Full in the center of the sacred wood, an orm arises of the Stygian flood, which, breaking from beneath with bellowing sound, whirls the black waves and rattling stones around. Here Pluto pants for breath from out his cell, and opens wide the grinning jaws of hell. To this infernal lake the Fury flies. Here hides her hated head and frees the laboring skies. Saturnian Juno now, with double care, attends the fatal process of the war. The clowns returned from battle bear the slain, implore the gods and to their kings complain. The corpse of Elmon and the rest were shown. Shrieks, clamors, murmurs fill the frightened town. Ambitious Turnus in the press appears, and aggravating crimes augment their fears. Proclaims his private injuries aloud, a solemn promise made and disavowed. A foreign son is sought and a mixed mongrel brood. Then they, whose mothers frantic with their fear, in woods and wilds the flags of Bacchus bear, and lead his dances with disheveled hair. Increase the clamor and the war demand. Such was Æneid's interest in the land, against the public sanctions of the peace, against all omens of their ill success. With fate averse the rout in arms resort, to force their monarch and insult the court. But, like a rock unmoved, a rock that braves the raging tempest and the rising waves, propped on himself he stands, his solid sides washed off the seaweeds and the sounding tides. So stood the pious prince unmoved and long, sustained the madness of the noisy throng. But when he found that Juno's power prevailed, and all the methods of cool counsel failed, he calls the gods to witness their offense, disclaims the war, asserts his innocence. Hurried by fate, he cries, and borne before a furious wind we have the fateful shore. Oh, more than madmen, you yourselves shall bear the guilt of blood and sacrilegious war. Thou, Turnus, shalt atone it by thy fate, and pray to heaven for peace, but pray too late. For me, my stormy voyage at an end, I to the port of death securely tend. The funeral pomp which to your king shall pay is all I want and all you take away. He said no more, but in his walls confined, shut out the woes which he too well divined. Nor with the rising storm would vainly strive, but left the helm and let the vessels drive. A solemn custom was observed of old, which Latium held and now the Romans hold. Their standard when in fighting fields they rear, against the fierce Hyrcanians or declare the Scythian, Indian, or Arabian war. or from the boasting Parthians would regain their eagles lost in Carea's bloody plain. 2 gates of steel, the name of Mors they bear, and still are worshipped with religious fear. Before his temple stand the dire abode and the fear issues of the furious god. And fenced with breaking bolts, without the gates, the wary guardian Janus doubly waits. Then, when the sacred senate votes the wars, the Roman consul their decree declares, and in his ropes the sounding gates unbores. The youth in military shouts arise, and the loud trumpets break the yielding skies. These rites of old by sovereign princes used, were the king's office, but the king refused. Deaf to their cries, nor would the gates unbar of sacred peace or loose the imprisoned war, but hid his head and, safe from loud alarms, abhorred the wicked ministry of arms. Then heaven's imperious queen shot down from high. At her approach the brazen hinges fly. The gates are forced and every falling bar, and like a tempest issues out the war. The peaceful cities of the Ausonian shore, lulled in their ease and undisturbed before, are all on fire, and some, with studious care, their restive steeds in sandy plains prepare. Some their soft limbs in painful marches try, and war is all their wish and arms the general cry. Part scour the rusty shields would seem, and part new grind the blotted axe and point the door. With joy they view the waving ensigns fly, and hear the trumpet's clangor pierce the sky. 5 cities forged their arms, the Athenian powers, and Timneh, Tibur with her lofty towers. Ardea the proud, the Crustumerian town, all these of old were places of renown. Some hammer helmets for the fighting field, some twine young sallows to support the shield. The crosslet some, and some the cushions mold, with silver plated and with ductile gold. The rustic honors of the scythe and share give place to swords and plumes, the pride of war. Old falchions are new tempered in the fires, the sounding trumpet every soul inspires. The word is given, with eager speed they lace the shining headpiece and the shield embrace. The neighing steeds are to the chariot tied, the trusty weapon sits on every side. And now the mighty labor is begun. Ye muses, open all your helicon. Sing you, the chiefs that swayed the Ausonian land, their arms and armies under their command. What warriors in our ancient clime were bred, what soldiers followed, and what heroes led. For well you know and can record alone, what fame to future times conveys but darkly down. Mezentius first appeared upon the plain, scorn sate upon his brows and sour disdain, defying earth and heaven. Etruria lost, he brings to Turnus' aid his baffled host. The charming Lausus, full of youthful fire, rode in the rank and next his sullen sire. To Turnus only second in the grace of manly mien and features of the face. A skillful horseman and a huntsman bred, with fates averse 1,000 men he led, his sire unworthy of so brave a son, himself well worthy of a happier throne. Next Aventinus drives his chariot around the Latian plains with palms and laurels crowned. Proud of his deeds, he smokes along the field. His father Hydra fills his ample shield. 100 serpents hiss about the brims. The son of Hercules he justly seems, by his broad shoulders and gigantic limbs, of heavenly port and port of earthly blood, a mortal woman mixing with a god. For strong Alcides, after he had slain the triple Geryon, drove from conquered Spain his captive herds, and thence in triumph led on Tuscan Tiber's flowery banks they fed. Then on Mount Aventine the son of Jove the priestess Rhea found and forced to love. For arms his men long piles and javelins bore, and poles with pointed steel their foes in battle gore. Like Hercules himself his son appears, in salvage pomp a lion hide he wears. About his shoulders hangs the shaggy skin, the teeth and gaping jaws severely grin. Thus like the god his father, homely dressed, he strides into the hall, a horrid guest. Then 2 twin brothers from fair Tibur came, which from their brother Tibur's took the name. Fierce Chorus and Catalus, void of fear, or on the Argive horse they led, and in the front appear, like cloud-born centaurs from the mountains hide, with rapid course descending to the fight. They rush along, the rattling woods give way, the branches bend before their sweepy sway. Nor was Pranestus found the warning there, whom fame reports the son of Mulciber, found in the fire and fostered in the plains. As shepherd and a king at once he reigns, and leads to Turnus' aid his country's swains. His own Pranestus sends a chosen band, with those who plow Saturnius' Gabine land. Beside the succor which cold Æneid yields, the rocks of Hernicus and dewy fields, Agnania fat, and Father Amasene, and numerous rout ball of naked men. Nor arms they wear, nor swords and bucklers wield, nor drive the chariot through the dusty field, but whirl from leathern slings huge balls of lead, and spoils of yellow wolves adorn their head. The left foot naked when they march to fight, but in a bull's rawhide they sheathe the right. Messapus next, great Neptune was his sire, secure of steel and fated from the fire. In pomp appears, and with his order horns, a heartless train unexercised in arms. The just Phalicians he to battle brings, and those who live where Lake Ximenia springs, and where Feronia's grove and temple stands, who till Thessalian or Flavinian lands. All these in order march, and marching sing the warlike actions of their sea-born king, like a long team of snowy swans on high, which clap their wings and cleave the liquid sky, when homeward from the watery pastures borne, They sing and Asia's lakes their notes return. Not one who heard their music from afar would think these troops an army trained to war, but flocks of fowl that, when the tempest roar, would the hoarse gambling seek the silent shore. Then Clausus came, who led a numerous band of troops embodied from the Sabine land, and in himself alone an army brought. 'Twas he the noble Claudian race begot. The Claudian race ordained in times to come to share the greatness of imperial Rome. He led the curious forth of old renown, Motascans from the olive-bearing town, and all the Rhetian powers, beside a band that followed from Velinum's dewy land, and a Mediterranean troops of mighty fame, and mountaineers that from Severus came, and from the craggy cliffs of Tetrica, and those where yellow Tiber takes his way, and where Himalayas wanton waters play. Casperia sends her arms with those that lie by Fabois and fruitful Forli. The warlike aids of Horda next appear, and the cold Nursians come to close the rear, mixed with the natives born of Latine blood, whom Aelia washes with her fatal flood. Not thicker billows beat the Libyan main when pale Orion sets in wintry rain, nor thicker harvest on rich Hermus rise, or Lycian fields when Phoebus burns the skies. Then stand these troops, their bucklers ring around, their trampling turns the turf and shake the solid ground. High in his chariot then Halesus came, a foe by birth to Troy's unhappy name, from Agamemnon born to Turnus' aid. 1,000 men the youthful hero led, who till the massic soar for wine renowned, and fierce Aruncans from their hilly ground, and those who live by Sidicinian shores, and where the shoaly forts Vulturnus roars, Cales and Osca's old inhabitants, and rough Satuculans inured to wants. Light demi-lances from afar they throw, fastened with leathern thongs to gall the foe. Short crooked swords in closer fight they wear, and on their warding arm light bucklers bear. Nor, Eubalus, shalt thou be left unsung, from nymph Semethis and old Telon sprung, who then in Telebone Capri reigned, but that short isle the ambitious youth disdained, and over Campania stretched his ample sway, where swelling Sornus seeks the Tyrian sea, over Betulum, and where Abella sees from a high towers the harvest of her trees. And these, as was the Teuton use of old, wield brazen swords and brazen bucklers hold, sling weighty stones when from afar they fight. Their casques are cork and covering thick and light. Next these in rank the warlike Ulfins went, and led the mountain troops that Nursia sent. The rude Equicola his rule obeyed, hunting their sport and plundering was their trade. In arms they plowed, to battle still prepared, their soil was barren and their hordes were hoard. Umbrio, the priest, the proud Merobians led, by King Archippus sent to Turnus' aid, and peaceful olives crowned his hoary head. His wand and holy words the viper's rage, and venomed wounds of serpents could assuage. He, when he pleased with powerful juice to steep, their temples shut their eyes in pleasing sleep. But vain were Morsian herbs and magic art to cure the wound given by the Thor. Yet his untimely fate the Æneid woods in sighs remurmured to the Fusan floods. The son of famed Hippolytus was there, famed as his sire and as his mother fair, who in Aegean groves Aresia bore, and nursed his youth along the marshy shore, where great Diana peaceful altars flame, in fruitful fields, and Vergil was his name. Hippolytus, as old records have said, was by his stepdam sought to share her bed. But when no female words his mind could move, she turned to furious hate her empire's love. Torn by wild horses on the sandy shore, and others crying the unhappy hunter bore, glutting his father's eyes with guiltless gore. But chaste Diana, who his death deplored, with Aesculapian herbs his life restored. Then Jove, who saw from high with just disdain the dead inspired with vital breath again, struck to the center with his flaming dart the unhappy founder of the godlike art. But Trivia kept in secret shades alone her care Hippolytus to fate unknown, and called him Vergil in the Aegean grove, where then he lived obscure, but safe from Jove. For this, from Trivia's temple and her wood, are coursers driven who shed their master's blood, affrighted by the monsters of the flood. His son, the second Vergil, yet retained his father's art and warrior's deeds he reigned. Amid the troops and like the leading god, high over the rest in arms the great graceful Turnus rode. A triple of plumes his crest adorned, on which with belching flames Chimera burned. The more the kindled combat rises higher, the more with fury burns the blazing fire. Fair Io graced his shield, but Io now with horns exalted stands and seems too low, and noble George, her keeper by her side, to watch her walks his 100 eyes applied. And on the brims her sire the watery god rolled from a silver urn his crystal flood. A cloud of foot succeeds and fills the fields with swords and pointed spears and clattering shields of Argives and of old Sicanian bands, and those who plough the rich Rutulian lands. Auruncan youth and those Sacana yields, and the proud Labicans with painted shields, and those who near Numician streams reside, and those whom Tiber's holy forests hide. Of Circe's hills from the mainland divide, where youths glide along the lonely lands, or the black water of Pomptina stands. Last from the Volscians fair Camilla came, and led her warlike troops a warrior dame, unbred to spinning in the loom unskilled. She chose the nobler palace of the field. Mixed with the first, the fierce Vergil fought, sustained the toils of arms the danger sought, outstripped the winds in speed upon the plain, flew over the fields nor hurt the bearded grain. She swept the sea sand as she skimmed along, her flying feet unbathed on billows hung. Men, boys, and women stupid with surprise, wherever she passes fix their wondering eyes. Longing they look, and, gaping at the sight, devoured her over and over with vast delight. Her purple habit sits with such a grace on her smooth shoulders, and so suits her face. Her head with ringlets of her hair is crowned, and in a golden coil the curls abound. She shakes her myrtle javelin, and behind her Lycian quiver dances in the wind. Book 8. When Turnus had assembled all his powers, his standard planted on Laurentum's towers, when now the sprightly trumpet from afar had given the signal of approaching war, had roused the neighing steeds to scour the fields, while the fierce riders clattered on their shields. Trembling with rage, the Latian youth prepared to join the allies and headlong rush to war. Fierce Euphens and Messapus led the crowd, with bold messengers who blasphemed aloud. These through the country took their wasteful course, the fields to forage and to gather force. Then Venulus to Diomed they sent, to beg his aid Ausonia to defend, declare the common danger and inform the Grecian leader of the growing storm. Aeneas landed on the Latian coast, with banished gods and with a baffled host, yet now aspired to conquest of the state, and claimed the title from the gods and fate. What numerous nations in his quarrel came, and how they spread his formidable name. What he designed, what mischiefs might arise, if fortune favored his first enterprise, was left for him to weigh, whose equal fears and common interest was involved in theirs. While Turnus and the ally thus urged the war, the Trojan, floating in a flood of care, beholds the tempest which his foes prepare. This way and that he turns his anxious mind, thinks and rejects the counsels he designed, explores himself in vain in every port, and gives no rest to his distracted heart. So, when the sun by day or moon by night strike on the polished brass their trembling light, the glittering species here and there divide, and cast their dubious beams from side to side. Now on the walls, now on the pavement play, and to the ceiling flash the glaring day. 'Twas night, and weary nature lulled asleep the birds of air and fishes of the deep, and beasts and mortal men, the Trojan chief was laid on Tiber's bank, oppressed with grief, and found in silent slumber late relief. Then through the shadows of the poplar wood arose the father of the Roman flood, and a sure robe was over his body spread, a wreath of shady reeds adorned his head. Thus manifest to sight the god appeared, and with these pleasing words his sorrow cheered. O undoubted offspring of ethereal race, O long expected in this promised place, who through the foes hast borne thy banished gods, restored them to their hordes and cold abodes. This is thy happy home, the clime where fate ordains thee to restore the Trojan state. Fear not, the war shall end in lasting peace, and all the rage of haughty Juno cease. And that this nightly vision may not seem the effect of fancy or an idle dream, as so beneath an oak shall lie along, all white herself and white her 30 young. When 30 rolling years have run their race, thy son Ascanius on this empty space shall build a rural town of lasting fame, which from this omen shall receive the name. Time shall approve the truth for what remains, and how with sure success to crown thy pains. With patience next attend, a banished brand, driven with Avenger from the Arcadian land, have planted here, and placed on high their walls, their town the founder Pallantium calls, derived from Pallas, his great grandsire's name. But the fierce Latians old possession claim, with war infested the new colony. These make thy friends, and on their aid rely. To thee free passage I submit my streams. Wake, son of Venus, from thy pleasing dreams, and when the setting stars are lost in day, to Juno's power thy just devotion pay. With sacrifice the wrathful queen appease, her pride at length shall fall, her fury cease. When thou returnest victorious from the war, perform thy vows to me with grateful care. The god I am, whose yellow water flows around these fields and fattens as it goes. Tiber, my name, among the rolling floods, renowned on earth, esteemed among the gods. This is my certain seat in times to come. My waves shall wash the walls of mighty Rome. He said, and plunged below. While yet he spoke, his dream Aeneas and his sleep forsook. He rose and looking up beheld the skies, with purple blushing in the their eyes. Then water in his hollow palm he took, from Tiber's flood, and thus the powers bespoke. Laurentian nymphs, by whom the streams are fed, and Father Tiber in thy sacred bed, receive Aeneas, and from danger keep whatever fount, whatever holy deep conceals thy watery stores, wherever they rise, and bubbling from below salute the skies. Thou king of horned floods, whose plenteous urn suffices fatness to the fruitful corn, for this thy kind compassion of our woes shall share my morning sun and evening vows. But oh, be present to thy people's aid, and firm the gracious promise that thou hast made. Thus having set 2 galleys from his stores, with care he chooses mans and fits with oars. Now on the shore the fatal swine is found, wondrous to tell she lay along the ground, her well-fed offspring at her udders hung, she white herself and white her 30 young. Aeneas takes the mother and her brood, and all on Juno's altar bestowed. The following night and the succeeding day, Propedius Tiber smooth his watery way. He rolled his river back and poised he stood, a gentle swelling and a peaceful flood. The Trojans mount their ships they put from shore, borne on the waves and scarcely dip an oar. Shouts from the land give omen to their course, and the pitched vessels glide with easy force. The woods and waters wonder at the gleam of shields and painted ships that stem the stream. One summer's night and one whole day they pass betwixt their greenwood shades and cut the liquid glass. The fiery sun had finished a half his race, looked back and doubted in the middle space, when they from far beheld the rising towers, the tops of sheds and shepherds' lowly bowers, thin as they stood, which, then of homely clay, now rise in marble from the Roman sway. These cuts Evander's kingdom, mean and poor, the Trojan saw and turned his ships to shore. 'Twas on a solemn day, the Arcadian states, the king and prince without the city gates, then paid their offerings in a sacred grove to Hercules, the warrior son of Jove. Thick clouds unrolling smoke involve the skies, and fat of entrails on his altar fries. But when they saw the ships that stemmed the flood, and glittered through the covert of the wood, they rose with fear and left the unfinished feast, till dauntless Pallas reassured the rest to pay the rites. Himself without delay a javelin seized and singly took his way, then gained rising ground and called from far, "Resolve me, strangers, whence and what you are, your business here, and bring you peace or war." High on his stern Aeneas his stand, and held a branch of olive in his hand. While thus he spoke, "The Phrygians' arms you see, expelled from Troy, provoked in Italy, by Latian foes with war unjustly made, at first affianced and at last betrayed. This message bear, the Trojans and their chief bring holy peace and beg the king's relief." Struck with so great a name and all on fire, the youth replies, "Whatever you require, your fame exacts. Upon our shores descent, a welcome guest, and what you wish, a friend," he said, and downward hasting to the strand, embraced the stranger prince and joined his hand. Conducted to the grove, Aeneas broke the silence first, and thus the king bespoke: "Best of the Greeks, to whom by fate's command I bear these peaceful branches in my hand, undaunted I approach you, though I know your birth is Grecian, and your land my foe. From Atreus through your ancient lineage came, and both the brother kings your kindred claim. Yet my self-conscious worth, your high renown, your virtue to the neighboring nations blown, our fathers' mingled blood, Apollo's voice, have led me hither less by need than choice. Our founder Dardanus, as fame has sung, and Greeks acknowledge from Electra sprung. Electra from the loins of Atlas came, Atlas whose head sustains the story frame. Your sire is Mercury, whom long before on cold Selene's top fair Maia bore. Maia the fair, on fame if we rely, was Atlas' daughter, who sustains the sky. Thus, from one common source our streams divide. Ours is the Trojan, yours the radiant side. Raised by these hopes, I sent no news before, nor asked your leave, nor did your fate implore, but come without a pledge, my own ambassador. The same Aetolians who with arms pursue the Trojan race are equal foes to you. Our host expelled what farther force can stay the victor troops from universal sway. Then will they stretch their powers athwart the land, and either sea from side to side command. Receive our offered fate and give us thine. Ours is a generous and experienced line. We want not hordes nor bodies for the war. In council cautious and in fields we dare. He said, and while he spoke with piercing eyes, Evander viewed the man with vast surprise. Pleased with his action, ravished with his face, then answered briefly with a royal grace. O valiant leader of the Trojan line, in whom the features of thy father shine, how I recall Anchises, how I see his motions mean and all my friend in thee. Long though it be, 'tis fresh within my mind, when Priam to his sister's court designed a welcome visit with a friendly stay, and through the Arcadian kingdom took his way. Then, past the boy, the callow down began to shade my chin and call me first a man. I saw the shining train with vast delight, and Priam's goodly person pleased my sight. But great Anchises, far above the rest, with awful wonder fired my youthful breast. I longed to join in friendship as holy bands, or mutual hearts and plight our mutual hands. I first accosted him, I suit I sought, and with a loving force to Phineus brought. He gave me, when at length constrained to go, a Lycian quiver and a Gnossian bow, a vest embroidered, glorious to behold, and two rich bridles with their bits of gold, which my son's coursers in obedience hold. The league you ask, I offer as your right, and when tomorrow's sun reveals the light, with swift supplies you shall be sent away. Now celebrate with us this solemn day, whose holy rites admit no long delay. Honor our annual feast and take your seat, with friendly welcome at a homely treat. Thus having set the bones removed for fear, the youth replaced and soon restored the cheer. On sods of turf he set the soldiers round, a maple throne raised higher from the ground. Received the Trojan chief and over the bed a lion's shaggy hide for ornament they spread. The loaves were served in canisters, the wine in bowls. The priest renewed the rites divine. Broiled entrails are their food, and beef's continued chime. But when the rage of hunger was repressed, thus spoke Æneid to his royal guest. These rites, these altars, and this feast, O king, from no vain fears or superstition spring, or blind devotion, or from blind through chance, or a heady zeal, or brutal ignorance, but saved from danger with a grateful sense, the labors of a god we recompense. See, from afar, yon rock that mates the sky, about whose feasts such heaps of rubbish lie, such indigested ruin, bleak and bare, how desolate now it stands, exposed in air. 'Twas once a robber's den, enclosed around with living stone and deep beneath the ground. The monster Cacus, more than half a beast, this hold impervious to the sun possessed. The pavement ever foul with human gore, hats and their mangled members hung the door. Vulcan this plague begot, and, like his sire, black cloud as he belched, and flakes of livid fire. Time, long expected, eased us of our load, and brought the needful presence of a god. The avenging force of Hercules from Spain arrived in triumph from Geryon slain. Thrice lived the giant, and thrice lived in vain. His prize, the lowing herds Alcides drove, near Tiber's bank to grace the shady grove. Allured with hope of plunder and intent, by force to rob, by fraud to circumvent, the brutal Cacus, as by chance they strayed, 4 oxen dense and 4 fair kine conveyed. And, lest the printed footsteps might be seen, he dragged them backwards to his rocky den. The tracks Aversa lying notice gave, and led the searcher backward from the cave. Meanwhile the herdsman hero shifts his place, to find fresh pastures and untrodden grass. The beasts who missed their mates filled all around with bellowings, and the rocks restored the sound. One heifer, who had heard her love complain, roared from the cave and made the project vain. Alcides found the fraud, with rage he shook, and tossed about his head his knotted oak. Swift as the winds or Scythian arrows' flight, he clomb with eager haste the aerial height. Then first we saw the monster mend his pace, fear his eyes and paleness in his face. Confessed the god's approach, trembling he springs, as terror had increased his feet with wings. Nor stayed for stairs, but down the depth he threw his body, on his back the door he drew. The door, a rib of living rock with panes, his father hewed it out and bound with iron chains. He broke the heavy links, the mountain closed, and bores and levers to his foe who opposed. The wretch had hardly made his dungeon fast, the fierce avenger came with bounding haste, surveyed the mouth of the forbidden hold, and here and there his raging eyes he rolled. He gnashed his teeth, and thrice he compassed round, with winged speed the circuit of the ground. Thrice as the cavern's mouth he pulled in vain, and panting thrice desisted from his pain. A pointed flinty rock, all bare and black, grew gibbous from behind the mountain's back. Owls, ravens, all ill omens of the night, here built their nests and hither winged their flight. The leaning head hung threatening over the flood, and nodded to the left. The hero stood, at first with planted feet, and from the right, tugged at the solid stone with all his might. Thus heaven, the fixed foundations of a rock, gave way, heaven echoed at the rattling shock. Tumbling, it choked the flood on either side. The banks leap backward and the streams divide. The sky shrunk upward with unusual dread, and trembling Tiber divided beneath his bed. The court of Caicus stands revealed to sight. The cavern glares with new admitted light. So the pent vapors with a rumbling sound heave from below and rend the hollow ground. A sounding floor succeeds, and from on high the god with hate beheld the nether sky. The ghosts repine at violated night, and curse the invading sun, and sicken at the sight. The graceless monster caught in open day, enclosed and in despair to fly away, howls horrible from underneath and fills his hollow palace with unmanly yells. The hero stands above and from afar, plies him with darts and stones and distant war. He from his nostrils youth mouth expires, black clouds of smoke amidst his father's fires, gathering with each repeated blast the night, to make uncertain aim and erring sight. The wrathful god then plunges from above, and where in thickest waves the sparkles drove, there lights and wades through fumes and gropes his way, half signed, half stifled, till he grasps his prey. The monster spewing fruitless flames he found, he squeezed his throat, his writhed his neck around, and in a knot his crippled members bound. Then from the sockets tore his burning eyes, rolled on a heap the breathless robber lies. The doors unbarred receive the rushing day, and through lights disclose the ravished prey. The bulls redeemed breathe open air again. Next, by the feet they drag him from his den. The wandering neighbor with glad surprise behold his shagged breast, his giant's eyes, his mouth that flames no more, and his extinguished eyes. From that auspicious day, with rites divine, we worship at the hero's holy shrine. Petidius first ordained these annual vows, as priests who added the Panarian house, who raised this altar in the sacred shade, where honors ever due forever shall be paid. For these deserts and the high virtue shown, ye warlike youths, your heads with golden's crown. Fill high the goblets with a sparkling flood, and with deep draughts invoke our common God. This set, a double wreath event entwined, and poplars black and white his temples bind. Then brims his ample bowl with like design, the rest invokes the god with sprinkled wine. Meantime the sun descended from the skies, and the bright evening star began to rise. And now the priests, Potitius at their head, in skins of beast involved the long procession led. Held high the flaming tapers in their hands, as custom had prescribed their holy bands. Then with a second course the tables load, and with full torches offers to the god. The Saeli sing and cense his altars round, with Satan smoke their heads with poplar bound. One choir of old and other of the young, to dance and bear the burden of the song. The lay records the labors and the praise, and all the immoral acts of Hercules. First, how the mighty babe, when swathed in bands, the serpent strangled with his infant hands. Then, as in years and matchless force he grew, the Icalian walls and Trojan overthrew. Besides 1,000 hazards they relate, procured by Juno's and Aristius' hate. Thy hands, unconquered hero, could subdue the cloud-born centaurs and the monster crew, nor thy resistless arm the bull withstood, nor he the roaring terror of the wood. The triple porter of the Stygian sea, with lolling tongue lay fawning at thy feet, and seized with fear forget his mangled meat. The infernal waters trembled at thy side. Thee, God, no face of danger could affright. Not huge Typhoeus nor the uncomputed snake, increased with hissing hands in Lerna's lake. Hail Jove's undoubted son, and added grace to heaven and the great author of thy race. Receive the grateful offerings which we pay, and smile propitious of thy solemn day. In numbers thus they sung above the rest, the den and death of Cacus crowned the feast. The woods to hollow valleys conveys the sound, the vales to hills and hills the notes rebound. The rites performed, the cheerful train retire,